So this paper is an hour and 30 minutes. It is the final unit of your engineering out of the 3 that you have done. The first 2 units were your coursework and this will be the last part. You will have an hour and a half for the whole thing and you're expected to use the entire time. If you are looking for extra revision on that, everything that has been given to you in class is also on Arbor. That includes the knowledge organisers as well as extra questions, and we have also got the past papers. We've looked at a lot of these in class, but there are also a few others that you can look at as well. In terms of the actual exam, there are a few errors to avoid. Specifically, make sure you are reading the question carefully and identifying what it is they're asking you for. There will always be quite a clear command word on these questions, whether that's describe, explain, compare or evaluate. And it's important that when you are reading the question, you are looking at how many marks it is worth as well. If something is a describing question, it is saying what something looks like. That could be to do with size, shape, temperature, properties. That could be to do with materials. That could be to do with changes that you see. It could also be to do with features of a product or materials as well. If it is an explain question, you then need to give a why onto that. So you are describing and then giving the why. This could be why something is happening, but also why you would choose something, for example, when it comes to materials, and what makes it good at that function. You will also get compare and evaluate questions. If it is a compare question, make sure you are using comparative language and that you are including kind of the positives and negatives of both sides of your argument. You need to include advantages and disadvantages, or for whatever they are asking you to compare, you are giving both sides of the argument. It is the same for evaluation. Anything that they give you, there will be an evaluate question if there isn't a compare question, and it will usually be around modern products or modern developments of a product. It's really important that you are giving a final decision on that as well if it is an evaluate question. Make sure you are most importantly checking the marks available for each question. There will be describing questions that may be worth 2 or 3 marks each, and that is because they want you to be really clear about the description, but also giving examples. Specifically the ones that we've looked at in class before, you have been given a certain material or a certain tool and asked to describe what it is. And the expectation with that, if it is worth more than just the 1 or 2 marks, is that you are giving an example to go along with that of where it would be used in the product. In terms of the sorts of questions you might get, there will always be a question around materials. These questions will not necessarily be in the same order every time, but there will always be a question around materials in there. Generally, they will ask you to either name some materials for different products or different parts of a product, but they will also expect you to be able to give reasoning for why you have chosen that material. So it might be that, for example, here we've got state the meaning of an alloy. They've asked you for the meaning of a particular material or a particular choice you've made, but then also underneath give a reason for why you might choose to use that when manufacturing a certain product. They will always be quite clear in giving you the product that they want you to talk about. You need to make sure you are relating everything you are saying back to that product or back to that question. It might also just be a general, here is a material, can you name some suitable properties for a certain function or certain job? And again, you do need to make sure you are relating it to the question. Don't give general properties or general functions. It needs to relate to the question to receive the marks. There will also be a question around tools, generally in this format that you can see on the slide. So it will give you a piece of equipment, it will ask for the name and the use of that. Sometimes they might fill in some of these for you. It might give you a list of different tools or equipment. It might ask you to give the uses. It might ask you to give some of the names, but not all of them. But it may just leave it blank, like you can see on the screen as well. This is generally just 1 mark per box you are filling it in. So 1 mark for the name, 1 mark for the use of that particular tool. It's important that you are trying to catch these marks because they are really easy marks to get, and generally speaking, like you can see on the example here, there were 4 pieces of equipment that you were asked to give the name and use for, and that was worth 4 marks, so it was just a really easy way to pick up some of those marks very early on in the paper. There will also be a question about equipment as well in terms of the bigger pieces of equipment we use. We have looked at all 3 of the main ones that might come up. That will be the lathe, the pillar drill and the milling machine. There may also be questions around a CNC machine as well, but the expectation on what you know about those machines is always the same. They expect you to know the name, to be able to recognise it in a picture, which is like what you can see on the slide here. They expect you to be able to name some of the processes you would complete on that machine. It does not necessarily have to be super detailed. They are aware that you will not have had access to all of the machines, but you are still expected to know what they do. One of the biggest ones and one of the easiest ways to pick up marks is they will ask you a question about health and safety. It could be as simple as list out some PPE, it could be just list out some safety precautions, or even can you give some risks and actually some precautions for those risks as well. But again, it's a really easy way to pick up quite a lot of marks because these questions do come up a lot. As long as you are confident with the 3 main machines, you have a fairly good shot with these questions, and we've done a lot of practice of this in class before as well. There will also be drawing questions. Generally, there is more than one drawing question. There will be one that is asking you to either complete an orthographic or isometric drawing of a design or product that they've given you, which is like what you can see on the screen now. These will be worth quite a lot of marks, generally between 5 and 6. They may also ask you to include construction lines. They may also ask you to include other details. It's really important you read the question here because that is where you will pick up the marks. If you have given a lovely drawing but you have missed out some of the details they have asked for, you will not be able to get full marks. But again, it's a really nice way to pick up marks on the paper just by making sure you are completing those drawings. Within that, there will also be a question on a process. So you'll be asked either using notes or sketches, or you may wish to use diagrams. Can you describe how you would create a particular feature of a product? The example on the screen here is just how would you create an internal thread on the pre-drilled holes that you can see in your drawing from above. They are expecting you to give a thought out set of steps for this process. You need to be very detailed and very clear on the equipment you are using. Ideally, if it says using notes and sketches, you do need to also include some notes and some annotations of that to show the process that you are undertaking. The quality of your drawings does come into the marks on that as well as the quality of your steps and how clear and logical they are. It's really important when you are going through these questions that you are trying to be logical in your answer, but also that you are trying to put them into the correct order when it comes to steps of a process. You can still gain some marks if you talk about every step, but if you do it out of order, it is not particularly logical. It is then harder to give those marks. Finally, and probably some of the biggest questions will be around modern developments in engineering. We have done a lot of practice on these in class because they are the biggest questions. They tend to be worth the most marks. It might be a very specific question about a product. So for example, can you describe the advantages and disadvantages of VR, which was the question in your PPE? It could also, though, be something a little bit more general, like we can see on the screen here, of discuss the advantages and disadvantages of different forms of renewable energy. That's quite a general question. If it is asking you about a particular product, make sure you are relating all of your points to that product. If you are giving very general points and it is a very specific product they are talking about, it is then difficult to award those marks. For the more general questions, just make sure you are being very clear on advantages, disadvantages, and if they are asking you to compare things, that you are giving both sides of that argument. If they're asking you to describe some features or describe some processes around a product, make sure you are being as clear as possible and that you are going through every possible development or feature that you are able to think about. In terms of these really longer answer questions, there are also just a few general things that can help as well. So there will usually be between an 8 and 10 mark question. Check the marks available to see how many points you need to be giving, but also keep in mind it is not necessarily marked point per point. There will be marks available for the quality of your writing. So for the 10 mark question in your PPE, you were awarded up to 2 marks just for the quality of your writing. Was it in bullet points or was it in full coherent sentences with a logical flow? Have you put things into categories that make sense, or have you just written points randomly across the page? Make sure you are writing as logically as possible to gain those marks because they're very easy marks to gain. For longer answer questions, also make sure that your points are coherent and you are not repeating yourself. One of the biggest issues we had in the PPE was that you were either rewriting the question into the answer, which is just wasting space, or we were making a really good point but then repeating it in different language, and it wouldn't have awarded any more marks because it was the same point. So make sure that you are making clear and different points each time, and that there is a good flow to that to get those quality marks as well. Make sure you're not wasting space for these questions. You do obviously have the extra space at the back if you need it, but make sure you're trying to use the space available as well as possible. And make sure that you are checking the marks for each question. To summarise that, so there will be a question on materials, there will be a question for drawing, there will be a question for equipment, there will be a longer answer question generally around modern developments. There sometimes will be a maths-based question that might be around either electrical components or around how to calculate area and volume of certain things, or perhaps waste materials. It's really important that when you are doing those, you are able to use a calculator for that, that you are trying your best. You do not necessarily have to complete the answer to get some of the marks. Make sure you are trying every question. That is the same for generally. As long as you are trying every question, you are likely to at least pick up some of those marks, even if you're not sure. Make sure you are having a go at all of them. And for those longer answer questions especially, make sure you check the marks available and read the question really carefully to see where you get those marks.